This is a scene from a Broadway production, Paint Your Wagon, danced by Gemze de Lappe and James Mitchell.
I already knew Agnes DeMille, who was a great choreographer. She knew me, but she didn't think I was right for Oklahoma. So I did The King and I, which was Simon Legree. And fortunately, DeMille and Jerry Robbins were great friends from ballet theater. So she asked me to come to her studio to audition for the lead in Paint Your Wagon opposite James Mitchell. And we hit it off right away, Jim and I. And I became his partner for a long, long time. We really danced together as if we'd been dancing together forever, immediately. So it just became a wonderful companionship and relationship. And Agnes was a part of it. She had already come up with a walk for Yvonne, my part, and when I first auditioned for her. And that was one of the things she did in the audition. It was just Jim and DeMille and me. We were alone for this whole audition. She showed me this kind of brazen walk, slumping into one hip, so that it was really defiant and assertive and bold and still ladylike, you know. DeMille was passionate, yes. She could go to great lengths of displaying passion through her dances, but it was always for real and deep felt. And if you couldn't do that, you couldn't do those dances, you know. DeMille, she did a tremendous amount of homework. She'd come in with steps and variations written down, and we'd go to work on it. She would tell you exactly what a gesture meant. If you didn't see it yourself, she'd come up with images. And I've used them for years afterwards, and people have said, now I understand why this works the way it does, because she would relate it to the earth or touching the earth.
Gemze, could you come down on the right leg, not the left, the right one? Could you turn her in the air, throw her body around while you're holding her?
No.
Oh, I think you could.
She would guide you. It wasn't so much that you improvised, as unless she asked you for a lift, you'd say, well, I want her up there, and you know, it had nothing to do with gravity. No, just there, just to be there. And so we work at it until we got it. And some of the most difficult lifts in the repertoire are Agnes's. And some of the lifts that she devised for Paint Your Wagon are just so difficult that most people don't even try them. Agnes was very concerned about the history of the West in the U.S. Paint Your Wagon really is about the invasion by the Easterners to the West and getting rid of the American Indians. And she was very political in that respect. And then very much involved were the gold miners, the people who went to Alaska, the pioneers. So she was very conscious of all that. And that's what her dances are about. Well, the first duet is the rope dance. Yvonne turns out to be more of an innocent than you would ever expect for a prostitute, which is what all the women were there for, was to take care of the men. She flirts with the other guys in the piece, and there's a real confrontation between Jim Mitchell, who's my partner eventually, and some of the other miners. So that kind of sets up the characters, who we are. And I think that's very important to DeMille, that you always have to know who you are, why you're there, and what the whole point of the dance is. And the relationship is there. The rope dance. It's a teasing kind of a dance, general wooing and saying yes and saying no back and forth constantly until finally there's a complete surrender and they really fall in love with each other. And that's when we start the pas de deux. And there's that big jumping lift at the end. And from then on, it's total abandonment. James Mitchell was handsome, charming, talented, nice. He was everything you could hope for in a person. And on top of that, he was an artist. DeMille formed a company and began to work on restaging for a new ballet, Gold Rush. A third of the show consisted of Agnes's dances from Paint Your Wagon. And she decided to make a suite out of it. You know, it was a real Americana concert version of everything. We went on tour, and we toured for 7 or 8 months, one-night stands, covered the entire United States, and that was the first time we did Gold Rush, and it was a huge success. Well, in Gold Rush, the gold runs out, the town is disbanded, and they have to separate, and that's the tragedy. Which leads us to Dance in the End, Another Autumn. It's one of the most passionate of pas de deux that certainly I have worked on with her. So at the end of another autumn, they separate. So it's a very tragic dance in the end. You have to fall in love every performance. It's not good enough to just think that you love somebody and gaze at them. It's got to have electricity that really affects your partner as he will affect you. What gets to an audience is this magic that happens.